Guys, what's going on? This is Andrew here today, and I figured it'd be a cool video to start talking about all the games I played in my childhood, and specifically the big ones. Since I was born in 2001, I consider my childhood anywhere between 2003 to 2010, because that's around the time where really I was just learning about video games, and I didn't really know how to think for myself too much, and kind of was just experimenting with everything and looking at whatever my cousins were telling me to get, whatever my friends were telling me to get, family, all that other stuff. So without further ado, let's get into this. Like I said before, I'm going to actually be doing it from like 2004 all the way to 2010, and I believe I'll make another video talking about the games from my teenage years, so like 2011 all the way through like 2018. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first set of games that we're going to be looking at is probably around like 2003 to 2006, because that's around the time where I was pretty young, and I think 2006 was when I graduated preschool. So you older guys are probably laughing at this right now, or looking at yourself and being like, damn, I'm old, because I'm going to be 20 this year, and I was in preschool in 2006. Let that sink in. Alright, so one of the games I'm going to look at right here is Halo Combat Evolved. So where I didn't really play this game too much because it was way too advanced for someone with the little coordination that I had, I watched my dad play this a lot, and I believe we did couch multiplayer every once in a while. Obviously, I kept dying because I sucked, but my dad was mainly who was holding me above. I think we beat the game together, if I remember correctly. I could be having a false memory because just remember, I was like 3 or 4 years old when this happened. But I do remember being able to play this game with him. Not very well, but I do somewhat remember beating the game, doing couch multiplayer. So, this game is one of the games I still respect like crazy to this day. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I like Halo 2 the best out of all the games, but Halo CE definitely a game that stood out and probably made Xbox what they are today. Okay, another game we're going to look at is a game that I still play quite frequently. MX Unleashed. So when I had this game, I would really only play the free play mode, and I would only have the first stage because I didn't know how to unlock the other ones. And even to this day, I don't know how you're supposed to unlock the other stages. I ended up putting in a cheat code to unlock them all, but this game still looks great today. I mean, you put this on a 1080i CRT with Xbox component cables, it still looks great. Hell, I actually just recently got the Xbox Series X. I got it on launch day, to be honest, but I got the Series X, and this was one of the first games I played on it, and it still looks great, even on my 4K TV today. The load times are great on it, and honestly, this is one of my favorite motorcycle games of all time. After this game, I tried the other MX games. I couldn't stand them. The controls felt off. They just didn't feel as nice as this one. This was really the last smooth experience of an MX game that I enjoyed. Anything else I played before, I got MX vs. ATV, didn't enjoy it. This is really the only one out of the MX series I like, believe it or not. Okay, another game I want to take a look at is Burnout 3 Takedown. So this is like probably the first car game I ever played. The reason why it was so appealing to me is because, well, when I was 3 years old, I was obsessed with cars. Anything, like there were toy cars or people's cars or anything like that. And just seeing cars on the screen made me go crazy. So my dad let me play this one, and it was pretty easy to control because I just moved the joystick around. There wasn't really anything I had to do with the camera controls, so this was a pretty easy one for me to do. My favorite one out of all of them was the crash mode because I also liked watching cars crash. Obviously not ones in real life. I never watched that happen. Believe it or not, I've never seen a car accident. Knock on wood. Yeah, but I've been obsessed with this game for a very long time. It is probably still my favorite car game of all time because I'm not a big racing game fan, and just the fact that they had crash mode in this made it so fun to me. I haven't played much of the other Burnout games. I did recently get Burnout 2 about a year ago, and I have enjoyed that one, but this one by far, just with crash mode alone, made it my favorite game. I heard the Vita one is really good too, but I haven't picked it up to give it a shot, but maybe one day I will. Okay, the last game is Tomb Raider Legend, and this is probably the first game that I remember watching my dad play, but I know that's not the case because I believe this game came out in 2005 or 2006, so I was already like in preschool at that point, but for some reason it's the first game that I remember my dad playing. I don't know why that is. Maybe just because this is one he played the most actively, but whatever it was, this was one of the first games that, got the Tomb Raider name in my head, and I didn't actually get back into the Tomb Raider series until I was in middle school at that point. And the reason I got back into it is because I remember my dad playing this one. Tomb Raider Legend is a great game. Great storyline, great gameplay altogether, and it's not one of my favorite Tomb Raider games by any means. I actually prefer the the remakes and everything, like the whole reboot series over the older Tomb Raider games, especially the ones over the PS1 games. I like the new ones better. But Tomb Raider Legend was a good start for me, and this is definitely one of the first I think this was the first action adventure game I ever played. So definitely a cool game and something that got me into the franchise. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we're going to be talking about the next range of games, and those I would say would range from about 2007 or maybe 2006, like later 2006, holiday 2006, all the way to about probably 2009. So let's get right into that. At this point, I had been playing video games for a few years now, and I had been playing on my dad's Xbox. The main issue was that my dad's Xbox, he wouldn't want me to touch because I was young. You know, everybody knows that little kids are going to fuck up your discs, so he didn't want me to mess with his. He wouldn't let me touch it unless he was home. So the next step was for me to get my own system, and what I ended up getting for my birthday from my grandma was a GBA. The year before I think the year the DS came out is when I got it, is the sad part. But yeah, I got my GBA with Pokemon Emerald. I also had SpongeBob SquarePants the movie and Sonic the Hedgehog, but I believe I sold those games when I went through selling a bunch of my systems and all that other stuff when I was 11. So this is my first copy of Pokemon I ever had. I still have it. I think the battery is gone on it at this point. It's just I need to get a new battery installed on here, but this is still my original game, and this is still my favorite Pokemon game of all time. I play through it quite frequently, and although I don't use the cartridge anymore, I do play it on the emulator to get the speed up and do speedrunning runs on it. I mainly play Sapphire and Ruby for the speed runs, but every once in a while I'll go back and play this. I might actually go back and play this again on the original cartridge just to get a save on there, just to kind of relive my childhood. I still need to get another GBA, although I do have a DS. I would love to get my original GBA back. I wonder if I can end up finding it. That would be really funny if one day I just found my original GBA, like on eBay somewhere, my actual one. That would be pretty funny. But pretty soon after the GBA, after I got mine, my cousin, who is pretty much the reason that I'm really into video games to this day, was getting games all the time. And whenever he got something, it was like, I got it next, and after I got it, he got something new. So I was constantly getting games that he was getting, and that's probably why I'm into a lot of the franchises that I'm in today, and some of the movies as well. So around holiday 2006, I got my GameCube, which I believe the Wii was already out at that point, which is kind of sad. I got a lot of systems late when I was younger. My parents didn't get them when they were brand new, except for the Xbox, which is a gift from my dad. But most of the time when we got systems, we got it pretty late, and since no one was a hardcore gamer, we didn't need to. So starting off with the GameCube, the first game that got me interested in the GameCube was Lego Star Wars, the video game. So it's not the original trilogy, it's the prequels, and this was the first GameCube game that really got me and my coordination set into playing games, because back when I used to play with my dad, I sucked pretty bad. I mean, I barely knew how to move my character without falling or off ledges or getting killed by enemies. It was very rough, but as soon as I got this game, I started being able to develop the coordination pretty well. I mean, this is the game that my cousins taught me to play video games on, and this is the game that I taught my brothers how to play video games on. Because with Lego games, if a character is left behind, they get dragged forward by the other character that's moving forward. So it definitely helped me much better when I was playing with my cousins. And this has got to be the first game that got me into really all kinds of video games, because my coordination was finally there. And this is also what got me into Star Wars and just everything under the sun. Love these games like crazy. I probably am going to play through this game again at some point. Okay. Up next, we got SpongeBob the movie, and although I don't have the original case, I do have the game in here, just for proof that I have the game. This is also my original game. I didn't sell it and then get a new copy. I've had this game ever since I've had my GameCube, and I've always been a big fan of the SpongeBob shows, and even to this day, I'll still like it. I don't like the newer episodes. I still like the older ones, but this is one of those games that was really good. A lot of people shit on it because it came out after Battle for Bikini Bottom, and a lot of people thought Battle for Bikini Bottom was much better, me included, but I still enjoyed this game a lot, and this was the first SpongeBob game, actually the second one I played from my childhood, because I had the movie game on the Game Boy, and then directly after I got it on the GameCube, so I think this is still a great game. Definitely not as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom, but it was definitely something that started me off, and it's one of the games that I started my sister on to start playing video games. So definitely a great game. I know a lot of people will think otherwise, but I really enjoyed this one. Next game on my list, or next two games I should say, are the Sonic games that were originally released on the Dreamcast, but then brought over to the GameCube instead. So right here, we got Sonic Adventure DX and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Originally, I got DX first because my cousin got the game. The day I got DX, my cousin got 2, so I pretty much got 2 directly after as well. So what's actually funny is, for some reason, I thought DX was the newer one, and this one was the older one when I was younger. It took me a long time to realize that there was a 2 on here. I thought that this just said Sonic Adventure Battle, and I was too stupid to see the 2. But yeah, later on I did figure out that it went 1 and 2. To this day, I find Sonic Adventure 2 the better one, but Sonic Adventure 1 is also really good and is like more of an open world and exploration than this one. I consider these two very different games. Although they are both Sonic games, they are very different from each other, despite being in the exact same franchise. I would say that these games are what got me into the Sonic franchise in general, and unfortunately, these are still probably the best ones that ever came out in the Sonic 3D, in all the Sonic 3D game releases, honestly, and that's upsetting. I really hope one day Sega finally does decide to make Sonic Adventure 3, and if they do, I hope they don't fuck it up, because I really ended up liking these. A lot of people didn't like them, but I think I like them solely because they were part of my childhood. I actually just re-downloaded the games on Steam to play them on my laptop when I go on vacation. So yeah, that's the Sonic games. Next game after that, I don't really have to talk too much about. Spider-Man 2. Really enjoyed this game. I still enjoy it to this day. It's still one of the most influential games in terms of working on game engines. The mechanic with the web slinging in this game was really good. I had the first one as well, but Spider-Man 2 is obviously the definitive game. A lot of people still consider it the best Spider-Man game of all time, despite the PS4 games coming out. Where I do prefer the PS4 games over this one is still fun to mess around with, especially looking back at it just to see how advanced it was for its time. I tried running it on the emulator on my phone, on my Razer phone, and it just would not run, which made me kind of sad. But maybe one of these days I'll try to work with the settings on Dolphin and get it on my phone, on my iPhone instead, since the SE is more powerful than the Razer phone too. But regardless, great game, one of my favorite ones from my childhood, and still one of my favorite games to this day. Last game is what got me into hardcore gaming altogether. This is the first game I was obsessed with, to the point where, I'm not even kidding guys, this is going to sound really dumb. When I was in 1st and 2nd grade, I was so obsessed with this game. When I had to take a shit, I would try to hold it in, and there were times where I literally shit myself because I didn't want to get up from playing this game. Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. This game is still one of my favorite games of all time. Honestly, this is probably in like my top 5. I love this game so much. I still do to this day. I still play through it every once in a while, getting 100% completion just for the fuck of it, because I feel like the way that they just had the gameplay in here was so good for its time. A lot of people disagree with me on that. I do think Return of the King was probably the definitive game, but due to my childhood, this is the one that I played the most. And considering this is a rated T game, and I was more self-aware at that time, I started being very violent and saying a lot of bad things that were pretty much derived from this game. So this was the first game that my dad ever took away from me. And unfortunately, until I was in middle school, I couldn't play any violent game like this again. Not Call of Duty. I believe I still played Halo for some reason, because my dad was weird when he had weird exceptions. Halo was one of the games that I didn't get taken away, but this was the big one. Unfortunately, I didn't get it back to middle school, so it's just, this is one of the games, this is also probably the first game I ever got good at. I knew all the moves at one point, and my dad didn't really know how violent it was. Although he played this in front of me, he didn't know how violent it was because he didn't know all the move sets, because he kind of just spammed the Y button and the A button. That's all he really knew how to do. But I learned all the combination moves, and once he saw those, that's when he took it away. So this was the first game I ever got good at, and I still love it to this day. Honestly, I'm probably going to play it again soon. I really want them to make this backwards compatible on the Xbox Series X. Would love to play through it on their higher resolutions or whatever upgrade they would eventually try to do. That's it for that section. Now the section that we're going to be looking at is probably my 3rd grade through 4th grade years, which I have to estimate to be like 2008 to 2009. And then right after that, there would be 2009 to 2010. So I'm down to my last two categories. Let's get into the one from 2008 to 2009. Okay, so the next section that we're going to be talking about now is roughly 2008 to 2009 when I was in second and third grade. And this is another big time for me because I got a lot of big games that ended up being huge games that I still play to this day pretty actively. So let's start off with probably the game that is the most important out of this entire list, maybe out of any game that I own. Guitar Hero On Tour Decades is the first Guitar Hero game I ever owned because my cousin had it and he also had World Tour, and since I was always a copycat, I was like, you know what, I'm going to get Guitar Hero On Tour Decades for the DS as well. And I sucked so bad. For so many years I sucked at Guitar Hero. From second grade all the way to fourth grade, I was garbage at the game. I couldn't get past easy. And I'll talk about what happened after that in my next video, talking about my teenage years, but this one, it was good for a certain amount of time until my screen on my DS started acting up because I dropped it a few times and the colors started being weird and I couldn't recognize the hopos anymore, and it was starting to get kind of annoying. So at some point, I dropped this game after some time, but this is the game that got me into Guitar Hero, and it's also my original copy. So definitely an important game, probably the most important game of my entire collection. So the next game right after that, my first on-disc Guitar Hero, was Guitar Hero World Tour for the Wii. So I got the bundle with the guitar, the drums, and the microphone, and I mainly played the guitar. I sucked at the drums. I honestly never got good at vocals. Also, vocals in this game was broken as hell, so even if I got good at vocals, I probably wouldn't have even known. I'd be like, why am I getting 94? But whatever the case may be, this game is really what got me into Guitar Hero altogether after On Tour Decades, because it got me to have the feel of the controller, and to this day, I still have this original guitar that came with this game, and although I can't find the body, the frets of those guitars, the frets of that guitar are now in my Wii guitar that I'm using for Clone Hero, the one that I'm still using to this day, so that's pretty insane. My game, all the way from the second grade, I still have the original frets in one of my guitars. It just still blows my mind to this day, so now that we've got those Guitar Hero games out of the way, let's go to the next few games that honestly impacted me pretty well too. And unfortunately, I sold my copy of Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, so I can't talk about those games today, but those were like some huge games, really big part of my childhood, got me into Pokemon altogether. And I'll be talking about another Pokemon game on the next part of this video. But looking at third grade, for me, Shadow the Hedgehog was probably the biggest game I was playing, minus Pokemon Platinum and Heart Gold. This game was one I was obsessed with, and I had it for the GameCube. My friend had it for the GameCube, a friend that I still talk to this day. His name is Michael. I went over his house. We got up to the final boss. Not like the final boss, because, there's multiple endings and then the boss. We got up to one of the endings and got stuck on the Eggman boss. Story was, I went home, beat the game, called him. He said, yo, I just beat it too. So we beat the game at the exact same time. A game a lot of people criticize, but a game that's heavily part of my childhood, and a game that I still play to this day because I actually truly enjoy it. As funny as it sounds, I love this game. So no matter how much everybody shits on it, I still enjoy it, and that's what counts. So here's some pretty interesting ones, because up to this point, I had never played a Mario game. Believe it or not. I may have maybe touched one on like the Game Boy or something that was maybe like one of my friends, but I never owned a Mario game up to this point. And the first Mario game I ever played was the original on the NES, my dad's NES, or actually my uncle's NES, which I actually still have in my collection. It's just unplugged because I have a Retron 2 plugged in, and the pins on the NES are basically screwed up, but this was the first Mario game I ever played, and on top of that, I played Duck Hunt all the time too, because I had a CRT, and I had the light gun and would play on the NES. So I would play this at my grandparents' house, and it was a great game, man. Honestly, this is still a masterpiece to this day, and it still holds up, and there's still people breaking world records on this game that just blow everybody that was a casual away that couldn't like get past the first world. Definitely a big game for my childhood, because this got me into another Mario game directly after, and since I was so young, I barely noticed the difference, and we'll laugh at it as soon as I get to it. But right after this one, this is the second to last game I'm going to talk about on this list right here. Last one on this list is Punch-Out. Man, I enjoyed the hell out of this game. I ended up beating this game when I was, I think finally in middle school is when I beat the game, but I was complete garbage at this. I don't think I was able to beat Glass Joe when I first started playing it, and I remember Review Tech USA like ranted about when a bunch of kids weren't able to beat it because even his mom that wasn't a gamer. Besides the point. That's completely besides the point. I'm talking about my favorite YouTuber right now. Yeah, this game is one of my favorite fighting games of all time, despite the age, and I haven't really gotten to much other fighting games besides this one, believe it or not, but gotta say, heavy part of my childhood, and really my first taste of retro gaming without me even knowing it. We are now down to the final category, and that is 2009 through 2010. So let's look at some of the games that I started playing during that time. So the first one I can think of is directly after I got into Mario on the NES, New Super Mario Bros. Since my dad saw that we were really into this game, he decided that this would be the perfect one for us to play, since it's still in the similar style to the original NES, obviously with upgraded graphics and improved gameplay in a sense. I love the hell out of this game, and unfortunately, I feel like they milked the hell out of this franchise, because it's no longer new anymore, and they're still putting New Super Mario Bros. On it, but this was the original, and in my opinion, this is the best one they ever made, and this is really what got me into Mario altogether after the NES version. And after that, I started getting and collecting all the other Mario games, and to this day, I am still a huge Mario fan. I haven't played through Galaxy, believe it or not, but I'm still a fan of everything else, and yeah, this was like the first on-disc Mario game that I actually played. It's pretty funny if you think about it. Next game is Kirby's Epic Yarn, and this game is actually the first Kirby game I ever played, so you're seeing a lot of firsts on this list. This was my first Kirby game that I ever played, and one of the first games I ever got into. Honestly, I think this is probably also like one of the only Kirby games that I played, and it is my favorite Kirby game of all time. Take a shot every time I said Kirby game. Now you gotta take another. Yeah, this is definitely one of the games that was a big part of my 4th grade years, and I recently just bought the game again after selling it years ago because I wanted to play through it again. It is just as fun as I remember it. Me and my cousin played all the way through this on Thanksgiving in one night, and man, I couldn't believe how fast we were able to beat it. But definitely a fun game to play. Definitely a Wii highlight, because I'm not a big fan of the Wii nowadays, but there were some highlights like this that I have to include. Okay, we're getting down to my final 2 games out of this whole video. So now let's look at Kinect Adventures. So, like I said before, my parents normally got game consoles pretty late because they weren't hardcore gamers. They didn't have to get the consoles. Eventually, my mom got my dad an Xbox 360 for Christmas with the Kinect bundle. So, with that, we got Kinect Adventures, and he also got Halo 3, but that wasn't really part of my childhood, believe it or not. Kinect Adventures was the game that was like wow to me, because it was around the time of the Wii where I thought the Wii was pretty cool, but I thought this was cooler because like it detected your whole body, you were able to jump and do all these things, and it was like you were like in there in person, just at your own home. I recently got another Kinect and bought this game for myself because my dad has his own copy in the basement and his own Kinect. And I've been enjoying playing this game by myself, believe it or not. It is fun to play with your family. It's fun to play by yourself. Obviously, there really weren't that many good Kinect games that came out, but in my opinion, this was one of the good ones. So with that being said, let's put that aside and go to the last game. And probably my favorite game in 4th grade around this time, and I had to go to Pokemon Black. Man, I was really into the Pokemon games back then, but I didn't get into them as much as I got into this one, and I don't think I ever got into a Pokemon game as much as I got into this one. Just in terms of, not replayability, but how much focus I put on the story and how much I've looked into YouTube videos of people talking about the story and theories and all that. This game was, like, in my opinion, the first game that they truly tried to evolve the gameplay. I know some of the concepts that they put in there were weird, but you had 3D models that were moving at that point. The environments in the game were just completely stunning to me at the time. Walking through that city and going into the sand areas, and just everything about this game blew my mind when I got it. And I played this game for about 2 years. I skipped Black 2 and just kept grinding this one out. I regret skipping Black 2 because playing it all these years later, I really do feel like I missed out all back then. and I probably would have gotten much more out of it back then. But man, I feel like they did a great job in the story, and this is probably my favorite DS Pokemon game of all time. Despite Platinum being great and Heart Gold and Soul Silver being great, this was probably my favorite one. So, anyway guys, that's it for this video. That's every big game from my childhood. I'm a 2000s kid, so I made this video fair by going from about 2004 to 2010. And in my next video, I'm going to talk about my teenage years all the way pretty much up to now. Not really up to now, but basically everything that I played in my teenage years. So, thank you guys for watching this video. It's been cool talking about it and looking back at it just with all the nostalgia going on. I will see you all in the next video, which I will be talking about my teenage years.